Oh,
Yes. All right, welcome back to Grey Roots. You guys are glad you're here. Those of you that have been with us for the last few weeks, we have been talking about some pretty tricky things. But before we get started, I just wanted to, I just wanted to say, distracted me, is that so we've been here talking since August, October, and just so that you guys know that are listening, we've got in our own households, we have some hard relationships that we're working through,
yes.
and it is tricky. We're not here saying that we have it all together. We know have all the answers. We're just here saying we're willing to step into it. Doesn't mean it's going great. We've got some hard situations going on in our families. So if that's where you're at, you're in the right place. So today, good morning, girls. I'm gonna say hi to
Good
you.
morning.
Good morning. Good
Or good
morning.
afternoon, whatever it is for you. So today we're going to talk about blended families and co-parenting. So if you are somebody who is in a blended family, or if you are engaged to somebody with kids or dating somebody that has kids, listen up. And because this is, if I would have had this before I married, it would have helped some situations that didn't go so well. So first of all, my story, as I said a little bit, is so I married Andy. I had 5 kids. He had 4 kids. Both of us lost our spouses, and so our kids didn't have to go back and forth from household to household. Um, so we had them all the time, full time, and back they were 7. Tommy was 17, and down to Andrew, who was 5. So there were 8 kids in the house at the same time. The Brady Bunch is not real. And speaking of, actually, TLC, the show was redoing the Brady Bunch, and word got out that we had 8 kids in the house. And so we actually met with the producer via Zoom, and he wanted all the kids there. And at this point, it was 2 years out. Tommy already moved out. Carly already moved out. So there was only about 6 in the house. But he wanted everybody there to see everyone. So we're kind of like, Tommy's sitting back here, Carly's back here. And one of the things he said was, he was really honing in on who doesn't like each other the most, or who fights the most, or, he was really trying to get us to stir up some drama.
Be juicy reality TV,
Oh,
right?
yeah. Oh, totally.
Yeah.
And they weren't going to pay us enough to be able to be on that show because we already had that going on in the house. We didn't need a TV show to come in and stir that up anymore, because the reality is blended families are really tricky. Can you guys guess like what percentage of families are blended families, or do you already know?
Ooh.
I'm going to say 50%.
60.
Yeah. I mean, 40, 50% of families are blended families. So we don't talk about this enough.
Yeah.
Kath, what about you? Tell us a little bit about your story. I know we've heard some
Well,
of it.
yeah, same. I made the decision to leave my marriage after 23 years and lots of children. And a couple of years afterwards, met literal Prince Charming. But even then, it does not mean that the blended family will go so well.
Mm-hmm.
He, being who he is, he jumped right in. His kids were already out of the house, so he was an empty nester, but I still had 5 kids at home. And so he came into that, and it has been crazy. The part of him coming in has been seamless. He's been phenomenal. I mean, my kids they did go back and forth between me and my ex-husband week on week off at first, but then once I got remarried, most of them chose to live with me full time. And so Jeff really became a bonus dad. I mean, I know my 3 youngest definitely consider him a father. I think all of them do. I mean, they, a stepfather, but those 3 youngest spent a lot of time with him. But the hiccup for me was me with with Jeff's boys, my Eggers boys, I call them. That's been the toughest part because number one, their mother died. And I know you both were widower. So when you have a dead spouse, I always say that's you're losing perfection. As it should be, right? I mean, a dead mom is a perfect mom, and I get that. I really do. And I made a lot of mistakes. If you know me, you know I jump in arms wide open. I'm like, get in here. I'm going to be your
Yeah.
new mama. And they don't want a new mama. They have a mama. She just happens to have passed. And I made so many mistakes, and I still make so many mistakes with them because we're so different. I mean, their mom and I are so different. I'm so different from those boys, and I mess it up all the time. I get so insecure. I'm one of the most confident chicks I know. Like, put me in a crowd, and I'll be running the whole crowd in 2 minutes. I get around those boys, and I say the dumbest things. I put my foot in my mouth all the time. I really struggle. I really, really struggle to build connection with them. And it breaks my heart because I want it so desperately, but it is very difficult. Yeah. And
Mm.
Alicia, I know you're not in a blended family yourself, but you grew up with parents who are
I
divorced.
grew
So
up
you
with
have that
divorced parents.
experience,
Yes.
right? Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. I had the experience of a child. Now, neither of my parents ever remarried or got another partner. So
Oh,
that
okay.
aspect is different for me. I do remember my mom dating. Um, I was like, yeah, whatever. You don't belong here. So be on your way. Be on your way. Right. But yeah,
Yeah.
I definitely have the child's perspective from that.
I knew there wasn't any room for any other siblings but you. You took up enough space.
I
Oh,
needed trust me, I needed a wide berth.
that's so funny.
Yeah, same for me. My both parents remarried, and my dad, so my mom's husband, Bill, he didn't have any children, and so no step siblings came in the house. And then my dad married my stepmom, and it's so interesting because that's helped me with my perspective now with my stepdaughters, is that I still, as an adult, even saw, I mean, they got married when I was like 4 years old, still saw her as just my dad's wife, my stepmom. I would spend every other weekend with her. It's just she just stayed in that role, and she did have a son, Brad, and he was a godsend. I don't know how he was amazing. He's who I would hang out with on the weekends. He was incredible. So that's my experience with growing up, and it is weird when your parents get remarried. It's strange. Doesn't no matter what age, and we found that out within the blended family community, like no matter what age you are as the child, whenever your parents get remarried and have a new family, it's just strange. um,
Yeah, and I do try to put myself, especially in my Eggers boys' shoes. Their dad, it probably did appear that he had all of a sudden a new family because my kids were younger and he was back to raising kids, going to football games and basketball games. And he couldn't necessarily show up for them the same way or didn't because he was busy, going to cheerleading camp and all these things that he jumped into. And that's got to feel weird. I mean, I would imagine that feels really weird if you're the
mhm,
OG family, seeing your parent other kids and
Yeah,
love
like
other
you're being
kids.
replaced almost.
Yeah, yeah, I
mhm,
would, and he loves his boys and would do
mhm,
anything for his boys, but, um, I don't know, I try to come at it more with empathy. I think I tried to bulldog my way in at first because that's my personality, and that did not work. How do you think you did that, Carrie? Did you go in as a bulldog?
Oh, there was such expectations on
Yeah.
everybody's part. It was so hard. It was so sweet in the beginning because we all wanted it for certain reasons. My kids, even though they did have those feelings, they were happy for me, and so they struggle, I'm sure, with
Mhm.
just we're happy for mom, but we don't want this for this reason. Um,
And you were single for much longer than me. I mean,
I
you 10
was
years, if I
10
recall,
years
and me,
of
it was only
raising
2.
my kids and in a
Mhm.
certain way, and we did things a certain way, and we ate certain things, and we just did in order for it to flow well. And so I was open to having them come into that. And that
And they
was my
didn't have to
mistake.
share you. Let's be honest. They didn't have to share you. They had your full attention because you didn't date in those 10 years,
I did
really.
not date anybody. And they didn't have a dad who maybe got remarried and had a new family that they got to go back and
Right.
forth. So it was us all the time. And that just, we had certain bonds with each other. And one thing what we weren't told early on is that when you marry somebody who has kids, the family you had is no longer. That dynamic is no longer the same. You
Yeah.
can't have this and have that at the same time. It changes everything. It changed the Miller dynamic. And those kids grieve that today. They still grieve that, what it used to be, even
Yeah.
after their mom died. Those few years, Andy was single for 4 or 5 years. Even those years they miss because it was just him. And so there's such coming into it, there's such loss. And especially for our both sides, there's trauma that was not dealt with. And so we're bringing in all of this junk into the family that really doesn't show itself in the beginning until we've been in it for a while. Um, and that was really hard. I absolutely bulldozed because they're like, what is this? What are we doing? What are we even eating? What's happening here? Like,
Quinoa. Is that quinoa?
and how do you even say, what even is that?
Yeah.
And
Quinoa.
he did the
Just
best he
quinoa.
could. He did the best he could. He was like a meat and two frozen broccoli, as a single dad. He's just trying to figure out, because what's interesting and I don't know if we're going to go into single parenting. We will, talking about how it is different with a female and a male.
Yeah.
He did not get the support that I got. He just didn't. And so coming in thinking with expectations, thinking it's going to be a certain way, and it's not reality.
Yeah.
Kath, did you go to counseling before you got married and just talked about blended families or learn?
Nope. I mean, I was doing some counseling after I got divorced. I mean, I did
Mm-hmm.
counseling then just to work on myself. But as far as the blended family, I'm telling you, I thought I've got this. I'm the mom of moms. Like I can mom
Yeah.
anybody. I remember I was y'all. I'm so embarrassed, and if those boys are listening, I'm so sorry. I mean, I remember Jeff and I had not been dating that long, and we go up to Kentucky because one of his boys is having a birthday party, and there's like 10 of his best friends there. And I mean, we are like fools all over it, smooching because you know how you're newly together, and I'm thinking, number one, that probably made his boys feel so awkward. And then a few weeks later, I'm driving through Kentucky and I'm dropping something off, and I like try to have this deep conversation with Tom at like 8 in the morning about how I don't want to replace his mom.
Mm-hmm.
Y'all, it was terrible. And then I remember, I think it was the day before Jeff and I married, I went to lunch with the boys because I just thought, this is so bad. They dislike me so much because
Oh.
Jeff got remarried pretty quick. His wife passed away. Um, and we were married probably, I want to say a year and a half later after his wife passed away. I mean, the man loves love and he loved his first wife. And he was, I pick you, and it was all over. He was done. So anyway, I go to lunch with the boys, and I remember telling them, all these crazy things. I make my own money. I had all these insecurities about it, and I still do. I mean, 8 years later, I still get so insecure, and I don't have this part figured out, even though I can mother anyone, and they don't need a mother. So I don't really know what my role is.
Mm-hmm.
Where Jeff
Oh,
jumped in.
yeah.
I mean, he jumped in dad. I mean, he did. I mean, he jumped
Oh,
in and those kids love him. And my kids
yeah.
half of them call him dad, or Sarah calls him Bogo, which I love so much. Bogo. This is a funny story. If you ever followed Demi Moore and who was she married to? Ashton Kutcher. Yeah. And so they called him Maud. That was their name for Ashton. Demi's kids called him Maud, my other dad. And so Sarah couldn't remember what it was, so she just started calling Jeff Bogo because she knew it was
Buy
something.
one, get one.
Buy one, get one. So to this day, she calls Jeff her
That
Bogo, which I
is
love
so
so much.
cute.
So anyway, all that.
Um, so one of the things about that whole thing is that I feel like there's less expectations on the dad than the mom. The kids are like, oh, he's just a guy. He's here. Yeah. He's fun. But with the mom, I feel like there's so many more expectations on the stepmom. Um,
Hmm.
So yeah, I felt for me, it was kind of the same thing. And I liked how she talked about insecurities because really we are insecure. It may not seem that way. Like you think about all the movies of the stepmom and what she's just this wicked, evil
Yeah. Snow White, or
stepmom.
not Snow White. Well, maybe Snow White. Yeah, Snow White too.
All,
Snow White, Sleeping Beauty.
yes,
They all had the stepmom.
yes.
Cinderella.
I don't know if you've seen Ever After with Drew Barrymore. Such a great movie. But man, and I have to think that now that I am in that role, that it could just be insecurity and hurt and not knowing what
Mhm.
our role is. Because I say sometimes that, stepmom is like, as a mom, we have these mom eyes on the family. Like we see things, we're more aware. We're like, okay, this is going on. You're not feeling well. How can I help you here? And we act on that because that's what we're for and that's what our role is. But in a step family, I can have those mom eyes, but I can't do anything about it. And that is a really tricky place to be. um, to see things but not say anything because you're not the parent. You're not the parent. Andy and I went to a couple of retreats actually along this way, and it's been very good. And Ron Deal, if you guys are a blended family or you're thinking about marrying somebody who has kids, look up Ron Deal. He is the step family guru. He doesn't have a step family. He doesn't come from a step family. I don't know why, but he's very good at this topic. And one of the things he said is it's not you don't put the family in a blender. It's more of a crock pot. You guys have
Mm.
all come together. You kind of just sit and allow each other to cook for a little while. We so didn't do that. And that is a huge mistake that we didn't know. That I wish we would have known that a little bit more and allowed the two families to still spend time together, to still just sit with each other rather than, all right, everybody here, we're all going out to dinner. We're all going on vacation together. We're all gonna, and that was not good. That was not helpful at all. And our kids were so patient and gracious to just go along with it. But I know it was not good for any of us. I
Yeah,
wish we
it's the
would have known
same with
that.
us. I did the same. I tried to do family trips. I tried to make sure holidays we were all together, that it was going to be, again, the Brady Bunch, that everybody would come together. And it was just awkward. And it is still
Mm-hmm.
awkward. I mean, my kids, I would say they love, well, they have step siblings on both sides. They have Eggers boys, and then they have my ex-husband. He remarried a girl that has 2 kids. So they always tell people, "I think I have 12 siblings." I'm not real sure. I really have, there's 8 OGs, and then you add
Right.
in here. They're so confused. But so it's a lot. But um and I've let that go. I think that's the best thing I've done, is to let go the expectations that everyone's going to come together. And just for this past Christmas, we had one weekend, we had all the grandbabies here, and one of my other sons was here. And then another weekend, we went to Atlanta and had dinner with our Eggers boys and their partners. And then another for actual Christmas, most of the league kids were here. So it was all split up over about a week or week and a half, but we did see everyone. And that's it. It doesn't have to be all, when you think about it, we have 10 kids combined. Then you add partners. There's easily 25 people here, and it's overwhelming, especially for the Eggers boys. It's
Mm,
overwhelming for me.
yeah.
But so I've let go of that. I think that's the best advice, is to what you've said. Let go of expectations. Try to get to know them.
Yeah. Meet them where they're at. And
Meet
I
them
wish
where
we
they're
would have done
at.
that. Yeah. And allowed the kids to. So now like Andy's birthday's this weekend. And so Hannah and Madeline and Andrew are going to take him out for dinner. And then Oakley kids are coming Saturday night. We're going to play poker. So it's two different. I know for him, he would want everybody to be together, but it just works better
Mhm.
when we
Mhm.
just do things
Yeah.
separately. And it's okay. It is
It is okay. I mean,
okay to do that. I wish we would have known that sooner. I really do.
yeah. Me
So
too.
another thing at this retreat was they talked about all the different ways there's a blended family. So my mom married Bill. He had no children. And, you married Jeff and his wife died. And then, for us, both spouses died. So some people can say, and what we learned from this retreat was it can be like, oh, you guys, that's so good because you don't have to fight this other household with rules and things they eat and screen time. You get to do it all and you get to determine where their life is going. I'm like, yeah, but we don't ever get a break. We don't ever get time for just
That's
us
true.
to nurture the marriage and to spend time with each other, because in a blended family, it's flip-flopped. We're trying to establish this relationship with the two of us, but we needed to be solid in order to make it through the teenage years and the high school years where you're just hooking onto that roller coaster ride of emotions and all that's going on with that. So we're trying to build a relationship with each other as well as speak into these kids, and it's just so tricky. So there's really no situation that is good or better. It might feel that way. And that's one of the things they said, is that there's good and pros and cons to each situation.
Yeah.
Because, yeah.
I was just going to say,
Y'all needed an Alice.
an
Oh,
Alice.
my gosh. I have
Y'all
a
needed an
bobblehead.
Alice.
She's a bobblehead. She's around here somewhere. That is an Alice. And
That's
that's about as
awesome.
far as I got.
For those of y'all that are our younger mom friends, and you didn't get that reference, if you go back and watch the Brady Bunch, who is, they're all happy, the mom, the dad, the 3 girls, 3 boys, they had a housekeeper that I think she lived there. Her name was Alice. Alice did everything. Alice made the lunches. Alice cleaned the house. Alice was there when the kids needed a Band-Aid on their knee. Like, Alice was like the second hands for the family.
Well, and
Yeah.
I don't even remember about the Brady Bunch. Was it also a widower situation? They both lost their spouses because there was no exits. Because I will say, listen, I'm speaking the one who has an ex and has to co-parent. I suck at that too. Let's be honest. I'm sure my ex would gladly get on and tell you how much I suck at that. But the reason I suck at that is because my kids always wanted to come to me. I mean, they wanted to live with me. They wanted me to handle it. They wanted me to. I'm the one if something goes bad, they call. I'm the one if they need money, they call. And so it just set itself up to stink at co-parenting, because a lot of times they would be, and I know that's wrong. I'm not trying to say that was right. I'm just saying it kind of, my kids didn't really want that. And I think co-parenting is hard, especially when a marriage is ended because things weren't healthy. I think it makes it more challenging. I do think, I remember in Georgia, when you get divorced, you have to take a parenting class. It's the law. You have to go and take a parenting class.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So I did that. And I remember the main thing that I walked away with is it said, kids don't have trauma necessarily because of the divorce. What caused trauma so much in children is the fighting. The fighting is the part that is so difficult. And so I've seen that again in mistakes that I've made. Sometimes saying things that I shouldn't have. Sometimes, I just can own up to co-parenting has been difficult in my situation, and I have not been the queen of it. I have tried to make it better. I have had conversations to hopefully make it better. But to be honest, I'm real thankful that all my kids are over 18 now. And there's not a lot of co-parenting that has to happen because it is difficult. It adds a totally different struggle to this whole thing of blended families.
Yeah, I can't imagine, Kath. Yeah, just having certain rules in your house or certain ways you do things, and then they have to go to the other house and it's different, and the confusion for the kids that can bring.
And you think of grandparenting as we're talking about that. And then also even in that and the stress it puts on the children. I do hate that my children have to navigate. And I now live in a different state as my ex. Once Henry turned 18, I moved out of Georgia. And so I think that puts even more strain on it because they have to decide, how do I see my mom? And then I need to see my dad. And so they're always on the go. And so I've tried to go back to expectations and say, hey, you know what? Don't feel any pressure. If you need to just go see your dad, go see your dad. It is okay with me. I am, no pressure to come here too. I'll see you next time. Because I think that is, from what I hear from the kids' perspectives, that's one of the toughest parts of blended families.
Oh.
Kathy, hearing that as a child of divorced parents, and my dad lived in a completely different state when they first split. My mom and I were in St. Louis, and my dad was in Chicago. And then my dad and his parents moved to the upper Florida Keys. That just sounds so safe.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's okay. Just you do what you like. It just like it takes all the anxiety out of
Yeah.
that. I love that for your kids. I really do.
Yeah.
I
Well,
really do.
I
I think that's
again,
a
not always
great
perfect, but it
thing
is
to
my
say,
goal, and
though.
I do
Yeah.
say that to them all the
Yeah.
time
Because
because
I
I
think there's,
want them to have a relationship with their dad. You know what I've told my kids
yeah.
about relationships with family members is I want people to be in your life as long as it's a healthy relationship, and as long as that's healthy with their dad, I am for it. I people often say, "Do you tell them not to be?" No, I know the importance of having a relationship with a dad. We know what that does for
Mm-hmm.
children if they
Mhm.
don't. So I am for that relationship, but I always do tell them any relationship, make sure it's a healthy relationship. And if you need to set boundaries, you be strong enough to set those boundaries. And they're learning that. And I'm real proud of
Mm-hmm.
them for that.
Well, I feel
But
like that right there is a huge nugget that can be taken away from this is if you are in that situation to remember the stress and the pressure and the anxiety it puts on the kids when it's, oh,
Mhm.
I can't believe your dad did this and I can't believe your dad, why would you want to go there? I got this going for you, oh, that just is not, it feels very selfish, but I get it. I'm pretty emotional. Everybody's being emotional.
mhm.
Let's talk about that a minute. Let's hone in on the emotions and the feelings that the kids, my kids, your kids, Alicia, you as a child being in a blended family, me as a child, like what are some of those emotions and feelings that are going on
So
inside?
I will jump on that because one of the things, you guys were talking about allowing the kids just space to say, hey, whatever you need, it's okay. It's okay if you don't see me. As a child, and I think a lot of kids are like this, I was 8, I was almost 9 when my mom and I split from my dad. And then I think I was like 10 or 11 when the divorce went through, whatever, 11 when he moved down to the Keys. And for me and my temperament, I have such a desire to please people. I want people to like me. It's all part of my yellow. That was very difficult, especially being an only child between two parents. I felt like many times I was in the middle. I couldn't please both of them at the same time. So I think just being aware of, and I think kids, regardless of their temperament, like their desire is to please their parents. Right. And so
Mhm.
when you have parents on both sides and the parents kind of take sides, it makes it very just difficult and heart wrenching on those kids, like to make decisions they really shouldn't be having to make. Right. And I think one thing that my mom was a rock star at is that she never, ever said anything derogatory about my dad in front of me. I
Oh,
never have a memory of that. Now, she might have gone to her parents who we were living with and blah, 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 blah. I can't believe Alan's doing this because my dad didn't make anything easy. He's a very difficult person to, get along with. And, she ended up with full custody of me, but she also, every Christmas, summer, Easter, that's where I went. But she never said
for
anything
her.
derogatory about my dad. Now, my
Wow.
dad, not so much. Other
Yeah.
side of the spectrum. It's all your mom's fault. It's all blah 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 blah
Yeah.
blah 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 blah. Right. And then like I have this icky feeling because like I love my mom. Right. I mean, I live with her, so I'm more mad at her because I go to my dad and I get to do all these fun things. Right. But at the same time, like the kid's heart part of it, like that can make them more whole is if the parents are both supportive on both sides of the other parent. If you have
Absolutely.
something bad to say, I'm not saying don't tell people about it. I'm saying don't say it in front of your kids.
Yeah.
Your kids are going to figure out what the problem is and what the issues are that you're having when they get older. I promise you they will. They're smart kids. They're going
Yeah.
to figure stuff out. You don't have to pave that way and say anything about it.
Right.
That's real difficult. I know that is yeah, that's real difficult. I mean, I have definitely I tried so hard not to say anything negative about my ex, but there were times when if something happened to one of my children and they were hurt,
Oh
then
yeah.
I might
Yeah.
jump on that
I can't.
Oh
bandwagon
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. How do you not?
Yeah.
and say, Well, and say, I understand that. I saw that too, or, to affirm them. But then there've definitely been times where a kid will say, Mom, I don't want to hear that because I might take it too far, see it as an open
Yeah.
door. So, I try again, I try real hard not to do anything but be there to support my kids in that relationship.
Yeah,
Do
that's
I do
Yeah.
it
good.
perfectly?
Yeah,
Not always. I'm
Well,
not going
none
to
of
sit here
us
and say I've
do.
that's
always
all
done it
right. We're
perfectly,
human.
but that has
Yeah.
definitely been my goal
Yeah,
from the
good.
get-go.
So our situation's different, obviously. We don't have the other person to do that with, but we did have a choice to talk about Kurt or talk about Susan
Mhm.
and support. Hey, what was she like? Tell me what she was like.
Yes.
And, talk about Kurt in front of Andy, like so much where people are like, are you sure he wasn't uncomfortable? Because, like
Yeah.
we do a 10-year reunion after Kurt's death and bring all the guys here and talk about Kurt, and Andy's there.
I love it.
But just supporting each other in that and supporting the kids and going, let's talk about her. It's not a shame thing. It's not I want to, for her to not to have existed at all. So encouraging them to just tell me about her. Who was she? Put pictures up in the
Yeah,
basement of
that
her.
is right. That is so hard. Not at this house, but at my other house, I had a family wall. I don't know if you remember that, Carrie. I think you came to that house, but I had this family wall and I had pictures hung all on the wall. And I did string and I literally clipped just snapshots. And I made sure to include everyone in there. I put Paula,
Mm.
wife. Geez, I can't think of who she is. Daughter, husband, what? Jeff's wife. I even put my ex-husband and his new wife and a picture of the kids up there. I tried to include their, Paula and the boys. I did include everyone there. I don't have it here at this house, but
That's good.
I was glad that I did that because, and
Yeah.
even then I remember, having to nudge Jeff, like, hey, isn't it Paula's birthday? Call the boys. Maybe I'll go out to dinner and,
Yeah.
celebrate her, even though it's awkward.
Yeah.
It is awkward, right?
Yeah.
But it's the right thing. But I do notice in Jeff's friendships, they're more quiet about it. He had some friends go to New Zealand just recently and they went to where Paula was born. And we also had been to that town, but Jeff had never told me that that's where she was born. And I thought that was so interesting that I hear the friends they had left him a message and saying, we're toasting Paula tonight in her hometown. And I'm like, wait, you didn't tell us that she was born there. So it is some of that's awkward
Yeah.
and you have to navigate that. It is okay to talk about that partner that's passed and even a partner that's an ex. It's okay to talk about them because of course you married that person. So there were some
Right.
memories with them. So we try to be open about that too.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's important for the children to be able to tell stories about the past without the
Yeah.
current partner getting upset or jealous or angry or
Right.
whatever the emotion. Yeah.
Yeah, and because we both been through it, we can understand. So that's a
Yeah.
good. So let's talk about a few positives of blended families because there are some
There are.
there for
Sure.
us. Having so many in the house, most of them were in high school, and so they got to, Tommy was driving, Hannah wasn't driving yet, Carly, so they all got to pile in the car whether they wanted to or not, and just go to school and kind of hunker down and go, all right, we're in this together. What can we do? All right, jump in the car and let's go. Things like that. And two usually graduated at the same time. So we'd have a graduation party with two of them. And so they just
Mm-hmm.
kind of tried to make it work. I'm so impressed with my kids as much as I know it. And also, as moms, right, we carry their emotions too. So I was carrying
Mm-hmm.
all the hurt and the awkwardness of my kids too during those times. But there were some good. We would go in the backyard and play ultimate frisbee, and there's a lot of kids out there. It was really fun, and for them also to learn how to, like the Miller kids with the Oakleys, 4 boys and Carly, and then 3 girls and Andrew. How do you I don't know. We don't know much about musical theater and singing and movies, and so the Miller kids brought that in to the family, and which is really cool. Hannah's very good at parties and planning parties and decorating for parties, so it was really fun to see her do that and learn, and for Carly to see that, like, oh, okay, and nails, and so Carly was like, oh, that's
Cool.
cool because I don't know, I didn't do that. So that was a really initially. So we're going to go back in the beginning. Initially, we thought, so our house has 3 floors. Let's put the girls in the basement. There's a two bedrooms down there. It can be three and a bathroom. And then we'll put all the boys on the main level. And that lasted about a week. And it was like, okay, clearly that's not going to work. That's not going to work. Everybody wants to be with their own. They want to be with their own. So we switched Andrew and Carly. Carly came up with the boys, Oakleys. She'd rather be in that disgusting bathroom, but it's her own brothers. And then Andrew was in the basement. And so that was a good decision that we made. We're like, yeah, this clearly isn't working. Even though they weren't going to say anything, they're just sucking it up because they wanted us to be
And you stayed in the
happy.
same house, which I think is so interesting because that is one of the first things I said to Jeff. Jeff he and Paula had built this stunning house. I mean, it was a dream house of dream houses. And I'm like, we have to sell it. We cannot. And we moved to a house not nearly as nice, but it was a house I could make my own. And I felt like being in that house, as beautiful as it was, I could never, and the boys would never see it as my house, and for a woman, and I don't know if it's different because it was your house. Tell me about that. You choosing to stay in your house.
If you are listening to this and you're about to get married, or you are, and you guys are going to stay in one of your other, don't do it. If you can financially, sell it and do an hours house.
Yeah.
So we did not do that here. Financially, we just couldn't make it work. And so what we did do, since the house was paid off, we took the money and redid it. Just kind of had it anew. We designed it ourselves, and like we both did it. So it kind of redid this main level floor. So it's not the same as it was. And that's all that we could do. But there is a huge difference. Andy still, what are we, almost 11 years in, doesn't really take ownership of this house. I'm the one. Hey, we got to do this in the winter. We got to change it. He's coming around, but it's still been my house. And so that is a huge
mentality.
Yes.
Yeah, that's how it was for me.
Yep.
We lived there 2 months, and I think I'm like, we have to sell it. So we did, and I think that was a good decision.
Absolutely, I would definitely recommend it. Even now, we're thinking eventually when the kids don't come around anymore and they get their own places, like we're looking forward to maybe selling it one day and having our own space. And I'm curious to see. I think that'd be really fun for him. Because this was Kurt's house. Kurt bought this house for me.
Yeah.
We raised the kids here. And so even for the Miller kids, like, man, they left their home to come here. And so it's this dynamic of I invited them here, and then now it's weird. And then why are you sitting in that space that Tanner used to sit all the time? Or why are you in this place at this time? This is not what we do here. So they're like, whoa, you invited us here, and now you're telling me I can't. So just so much confusion.
Well, homes, I was going to say homes mean so much. I remember when John and I divorced, Henry was he was the youngest, and we had built this house that we lived in. And I remember Henry saying, when I grow up, I'm going to buy that house and I'm going to move back in my house. And it broke my heart. And, homes mean so much to kids, so
they do. I mentioned that selling this and Carly was like, no, don't, I'll buy it. Save it for me.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah. Because it has been such a safe place for them.
It is.
But it's confusing for the Miller kids. Like, do we put our stuff upstairs? Where do I, so
they probably feel like a guest. I would imagine they feel like
absolutely,
a guest.
For sure. And it's been 11 years and they still do.
Yeah.
So,
and that's understandable.
And I don't know as far as my role, there are things I could have done very much. So many things I did wrong, but we're all just trying to survive, right? You guys.
Yeah. I love that. And I might've mentioned this before, but I think my little wise Sarah, she's so cute. She tells her friends often, she's like, you guys, y'all forget that parents, they're just people too. They're not anything more than just people.
Yeah.
And I think that's the root of it, is that's what I would say to my Eggers boys. You guys, I messed it up, but I do love them and I do want to be in their life and I want to support them and care for them. And I'm still learning.
Yeah.
I'm still learning.
Yeah. Same. If Hannah or Madeline or Caitlin, even Andrew ever listened to this, like, you guys, like, my heart is for you. It's always been for you. And I've done a lot of things wrong. But just know I'm one of your biggest cheerleaders in this life and want good things for you. Even though sometimes things I say or do can be counterintuitive to that. That's always my heart. Um, I'm human. We are not, but and
We are.
I'm human.
But
And we've all been through some stuff, man. We're just trying to figure this out and do the best we can. So
Yeah.
in blended families, you talked about if you're in a two-parent home to not talk bad about the spouse, the ex-spouse. Also, to if you're in this situation, to think about getting your own home together, communicating. We had a few
Mm.
family meetings here, and the very first one was awful. It was terrible. But we tried to have some family meetings where people can express some things. And we also needed counseling through that. So, counseling from the divorce or the death before moving into this new relationship is super helpful. And I would
Yeah.
highly recommend that, even if maybe you think you don't need it, you do. We all do anytime. So, there's no way we can come into a healthy relationship if there's stuff from the past. Setting boundaries and defining roles. Like, what is my role? What is my role? It's different with each kid. So now the girls are older and the Oakleys are older and they don't see each other anymore. They don't need to. They're not choosing to. But because Andrew and even Caitlin were younger, they do cross over. Andrew crosses over for sure. And Caitlin's for all of this. She's for us, where the others are still a little unsure. So defining what those roles are as a stepmom, as a stepdaughter, as a stepson, as a stepdad, like, what are we doing here? What does this look like? Because
Listen,
expectations can lead to resentment and disappointment.
I was going to say that because I think that's one of the hardest parts of it is that I don't know if you feel this way, but in a lot of situations, even though I'm remarried to a wonderful man who can be a father figure, I still feel like a single parent. I still feel like I'm doing this myself. Those big, deep issues, it is different. It's different being remarried and parenting than parenting with
Mm.
the original spouse. Do you find that, Carrie?
Absolutely. And you would
Yeah.
assume that because now we're married, that now we're not single parents, but we are. We are
Right.
living two separate lives, actually, and we sometimes come together. He deals
Mhm.
with the car issues with the girls and finances and college with them. And then I can come in and we can talk about it and offer some thoughts and opinions and ideas, but he's the one that makes the ultimate decision with them. I make the ultimate decision with Oakley's with his input. So definitely single
Mhm.
parenting, still single parenting. We're just single parenting two different families and two different entities. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's not just one big family. It's not that. You're
It's
right.
complicated.
It is so complicated. Blended families, man, we could keep going on and on and on about this. So, patience with each other, look for the fun. This is our theme, right? Give people the benefit of the doubt. We're all doing the best we can, even though we're trying to do better and we're all still learning. So, if you are in a blended family or you know somebody, what can be a small deposit, Alicia? I know you've kind of been
Oh,
hanging out back
um,
there.
small deposit for blended families. I honestly, like, I think like what really hit me hardest from this listen to you guys is what Kathy said was just letting the kid, like from the kid's perspective, depositing to those stepkids of letting them know, like, listen, it's okay if you
Mm,
want to, if you need time here or there, or that's not with us, like, it's okay. And we love you. We are always here for you.
mhm.
Right. Because the other side of that equation for them may not be that. They may not get that. Um, so I would say, yeah, if you can get to that point where you really, are feeling that way, to share that with those children that are in your family now, your own,
Mm.
your stepkids,
Yeah,
bonus kids, whatever you want to call them. Um, I mean, for me, that would have been like huge,
yeah, good.
you know,
So
Yeah.
allowing
freeing, very
everybody
freeing.
where they're at to be where they're at. If
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
want to show up,
Yeah.
show up. If you don't want to show up, don't show up. Just whatever you feel like you need to do in this at this time. I
Yeah.
support
And they
you.
may have another parent that's like, nope, you don't get to do that. I have you on this weekend, and that's too bad if you have a school thing and I'm not taking you. They might, but if they can at least get it from one side, you
Yeah.
know, you're giving
Yeah.
them that security and really just that freedom to be like, I don't have to worry about that side. I don't have to worry
Mhm.
about my mom or my dad or who, you know, I don't have to worry about what they're thinking and wanting me to do this. I have a niece that like she's almost 30 now, but she is like, actually maybe she is 30. Anyway, my point is that she very much has that same, wants people to like her, wants her mom to be happy with her, wants her dad to be happy with her. Now she's got a stepdad and a stepmom, and like that's been since she was about 3 years old. And like she still just feels like, I just don't know how to please everybody. And the reality is, baby, you can't. You
You can't.
can't.
Yeah.
So if you as a parent can give them that foundation and that freedom to just say, listen, I am here whenever you need me. You go and do what you need to
Mhm.
do. I think that is
Absolutely.
the best deposit you could ever give them.
Wow.
Hmm.
Yep. That's great. Any last thoughts, Kath?
No, I think just be honest and give them permission to be honest and
Mhm.
be vulnerable. And I stink at it. In this case, I stink at it with those boys. And
Oh, you
I
do.
wish I could go back and do it a little differently for sure.
Yeah. Well, if
But
you're listening and you are in a blended family, or there's some things that we've talked about that has raised questions for you, or you just want to talk about further, please reach out to us. We'd love to talk to you about it. This is a very complicated situation. There's so many
yeah,
different dynamics that play into it. It's not easy at all. We're just all wanting to show up better and learn as we go because we're all still learning.
yeah,
So
absolutely.
next week is Living Off the Script, Baby Daddy Diaries.
Woot
Oh,
Woot
woot.
we
woot.
got some baby daddy.
Anybody got,
Yeah.
any grandma's got some baby daddies out there.
Baby
Come on,
daddies.
y'all, come on. Got some kids that got some baby daddies. You
Yep.
got some, come on.
Hey
We
Yeah.
got
now.
some kids that
All
are baby
right.
daddies.
Yeah. Okay. So anyway, we'll see you
We are
next
diving in.
week. Bye.
Hey, Alicia's going to lead that.
Yeah, we'll
Woot
put some
woot.
resources in the show notes today for some resources for blended families as well.
Peace
See
out.
y'all.
Awesome.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.